Maya Chen had grown tired of the same four walls of her hospital room. The accident 3 years ago had left her legs useless, but her mind remained sharp as ever. At 19, she refused to let her wheelchair define her limits. Today, against all hospital regulations, she had managed to slip away from her overprotective nurses and venture into the restricted underground levels of the research facility. The elevator hummed as it descended deeper than any patient was supposed to go. Maya's heart raced with excitement and fear. She had overheard the doctors whispering about something extraordinary discovered in the old mining tunnels beneath the facility, something that defied explanation. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing a dimly lit corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the concrete walls. Maya's wheelchair moved silently across the smooth floor as she explored deeper into the facility's secrets. She followed the sound of distant machinery and hushed voices until she reached a massive steel door marked with warnings in multiple languages. Through a small observation window, Maya peered into what appeared to be a vast underground cavern that had been converted into some kind of containment facility. What she saw inside made her gasp. A creature of impossible beauty and terror lay chained to the cavern floor. Its scales shimmered like molten gold and emerald in the artificial lighting. The being was easily 50 feet long, with wings that could have spanned twice that distance if they weren't bound by thick metal cables. This was no earthly animal. This was a dragon. But what struck Maya most wasn't the creature's magnificent appearance. It was the look in its ancient, intelligent eyes. Pain, yes, but also a profound sadness that seemed to echo through millennia. The dragon's head was held down by a massive collar connected to chains that disappeared into the cavern walls. Maya noticed the scientists and military personnel moving around the creature with instruments and weapons. They were studying it, experimenting on it. The dragon's breathing was labored, and she could see fresh wounds along its flanks where samples had been taken. Something deep inside Maya's chest tightened with anger. She had spent years being treated like a specimen herself, poked and prodded by well-meaning doctors who saw her more as a condition than a person. She recognized that same dehumanizing treatment being inflicted on this magnificent being. The dragon's massive eye suddenly turned toward the observation window, and Maya felt a jolt of electricity run through her entire body. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, their gazes locked. In that ancient stare, Maya sensed intelligence far beyond human comprehension. The dragon wasn't just an animal. It was a person, trapped and tortured in a body that happened to be scaled and winged instead of skin and bone. A tear rolled down Maya's cheek as she pressed her palm against the reinforced glass. The dragon's eye widened slightly, as if it too had felt the connection. Maya could swear she saw the faintest nod of acknowledgement from the great creature. "You shouldn't be here," a stern voice said behind her. Maya spun her wheelchair around to face Dr. Harrison, the facility's head researcher. His expression was a mixture of anger and concern. Behind him stood two security guards with their hands resting on their weapons. "What is that thing?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. Dr. Harrison's face hardened. "That's classified information, Miss Chen. You need to return to your room immediately." "It's suffering," Maya said, her voice growing stronger. "I can see it in its eyes. That's not just an animal you're experimenting on." "You don't understand the bigger picture," Dr. Harrison replied. "That creature appeared in our atmosphere 6 months ago. It destroyed 3 fighter jets before we managed to bring it down with electromagnetic pulse weapons. It's potentially the most dangerous entity we've ever encountered." Maya shook her head. "It's not dangerous, it's frightened and in pain. You're torturing it." "Miss Chen, you're a patient here, not a researcher. You have no idea what you're talking about." Dr. Harrison gestured to the guards. "Please escort her back to the medical wing and make sure this doesn't happen again." As the guards moved to take control of her wheelchair, Maya looked back through the observation window one more time. The dragon was still watching her, and in its gaze she saw something that changed everything. It wasn't just intelligence she recognized. It was hope. That night back in her hospital room, Maya couldn't sleep. Images of the chained dragon haunted her thoughts. She had always been fascinated by stories of dragons from human mythology, but seeing one in reality was overwhelming. More than that, the connection she had felt was unlike anything in her experience. She began researching everything she could find about the facility's recent activities. Using her laptop and the hacking skills she had developed during her long recovery, Maya dug through classified databases and security footage. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The dragon had indeed appeared suddenly in Earth's atmosphere 6 months ago, but the military reports she accessed told a different story than Dr. Harrison's version. The dragon hadn't attacked the fighter jets. It had been trying to communicate. The pilots had interpreted its approach as aggression and opened fire first. Even more disturbing were the experiment logs. The creature was being subjected to painful procedures designed to understand its biology and abilities. Tissue samples, neural probes, stress tests. The scientists were treating it like a laboratory rat, despite clear evidence of its intelligence. Maya found video footage from the dragon's capture. The magnificent creature had been circling peacefully over the Pacific Ocean when military forces surrounded it. It had tried to flee only after being attacked, and even then, it had avoided populated areas despite having ample opportunity for revenge. As dawn approached, Maya had made her decision. She couldn't stand by and watch this torture continue. The dragon was a sentient being, possibly the last of its kind, trapped on an alien world and subjected to unconscionable treatment by creatures it had never meant to harm. Maya began planning. She would find a way to communicate with the dragon, she would learn its story, and somehow she would find a way to set it free. The next day, Maya put on her most innocent smile and asked to speak with Dr. Harrison. When he arrived at her room, she was ready with her proposition. "I want to help with the dragon research," she said directly. Dr. Harrison frowned. "Miss Chen, I thought we discussed this yesterday. You're a patient, not a researcher." "But I have something you need," Maya continued. "I saw how it looked at me. It responded to me in a way it hasn't responded to anyone else." This was true. Maya had reviewed hours of security footage showing the dragon's interactions with facility personnel. It had been completely unresponsive to all attempts at communication, showing only fear and aggression. But with Maya, it had been different. Dr. Harrison studied her carefully. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Let me try to establish communication with it. I'm paralyzed, not stupid. I have degrees in linguistics and computer science. If that creature is intelligent, I might be able to find a way to talk to it." The doctor was quiet for a long moment. Maya could see him weighing the potential benefits against the risks. Finally, he spoke. "Any interaction would be heavily supervised and limited to brief sessions. You would follow all safety protocols without question, and if I determine that the contact is dangerous, it stops immediately." Maya nodded eagerly. "Absolutely, I just want to help." What Dr. Harrison didn't know was that Maya had spent the night learning everything she could about the facility's security systems, staff schedules, and emergency protocols. She wasn't planning to just communicate with the dragon. She was planning something much more ambitious. 3 days later, Maya found herself back in the underground cavern, this time with official permission. She was accompanied by Dr. Harrison, 2 guards, and a team of researchers with various monitoring equipment. They had set up a mobile workstation just outside the dragon's reach, protected by additional barriers. The dragon lay in the same position as before, its great head resting on the cavern floor. But when Maya's wheelchair came into view, its massive eye opened and focused on her immediately. Maya's heart began racing again as she felt that same electric connection from their first encounter. This time, she didn't fight it. She opened herself to whatever the dragon was trying to share. "Hello," she said simply, her voice echoing in the vast space. The dragon's breathing changed, becoming deeper and more rhythmic. Its head lifted slightly, causing the chains to rattle ominously. The guards tensed, but Maya raised her hand to stop them from intervening. "I know you understand me," Maya continued. "I can see it in your eyes. You're not just an animal, you're a person, aren't you?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then the dragon began to make a sound unlike anything Maya had ever heard. It started as a low rumble deep in its chest, then rose in pitch and complexity. It wasn't quite speech, but it wasn't random noise either. There were patterns, repetitions, variations that suggested meaning. Maya closed her eyes and listened with her whole being. Images began forming in her mind. Flashes of vast spaces between stars, worlds of unimaginable beauty, and a sense of loss so profound it brought tears to her eyes. When she opened her eyes, the dragon had stopped its vocalizations and was watching her intently. Maya felt a certainty growing inside her that defied explanation. "You're not from Earth," she said quietly. "You're from somewhere far away, and you can't go home." The dragon's great eye blinked once slowly, and Maya knew she was right. Over the following weeks, Maya's sessions with the dragon became the highlight of her existence. Each day brought new discoveries that amazed even the skeptical research team. The creature, whom Maya had privately begun calling Zephyr, demonstrated problem-solving abilities that surpassed most humans. Dr. Harrison had initially been resistant to Maya's unconventional methods, but the results were undeniable. Where months of traditional scientific approaches had yielded nothing but fear and aggression, Maya's empathetic communication was producing breakthrough after breakthrough. Zephyr had learned to recognize dozens of human words and concepts. More remarkably, it had begun teaching Maya elements of its own language. The dragon's vocalizations followed complex mathematical patterns that Maya's computer science background helped her decode. She discovered that Zephyr's species communicated through layered harmonics that could convey multiple concepts simultaneously. "It's not just intelligent," Maya explained to the fascinated research team during one of their daily briefings. "It's more intelligent than we are. Its thought processes are so advanced that we're like children trying to understand quantum physics." Through painstaking communication sessions, Maya had learned fragments of Zephyr's story. The dragon came from a world called Ethros, where its people had achieved perfect harmony between technology and nature. Zephyr's species, the Draconians, were explorers and peacemakers who traveled between worlds seeking knowledge and offering assistance to developing civilizations. Zephyr had been on such a mission when its ship had malfunctioned during interdimensional travel. The vessel had crashed in Earth's ocean, and Zephyr had barely escaped with its life. Without its ship's technology, it was stranded millions of light years from home with no way to contact its people. The most heartbreaking part of Zephyr's story was learning about its mission to Earth. The Draconians had detected signs that humanity was approaching a critical point in its development. They had sent Zephyr as an ambassador to make first contact and offer guidance that could help humanity avoid the catastrophic mistakes that had destroyed countless other civilizations. Instead, Zephyr had been shot down and imprisoned. Maya found herself spending every waking moment thinking about the dragon's situation. The more she learned about Zephyr's people and their peaceful intentions, the more horrified she became at humanity's response. Her own species had reacted to first contact with an advanced alien civilization by immediately resorting to violence and imprisonment. During one particularly intense communication session, Zephyr shared something that changed everything for Maya. Through a complex series of harmonics and mental images, the dragon explained that its ship's wreckage contained technology that could revolutionize human civilization. Clean energy sources that could end pollution and poverty. Medical knowledge that could cure diseases and extend lifespans. Transportation methods that could carry humanity to the stars. But more than that, Zephyr revealed that its mission wasn't over. Hidden within the ship's remains was a communication device that could contact the Draconian fleet. If activated, it would bring Zephyr's people to Earth for peaceful first contact, exactly as originally intended. The problem was that Zephyr's ship had crashed in a deep ocean trench, and the technology required the dragon's unique biological interface to function. Zephyr would need to be free to complete its mission and potentially save both species from a future filled with conflict and environmental destruction. Maya knew that Dr. Harrison and the military would never willingly release Zephyr. To them, the dragon represented a potential weapon to be studied and exploited, not a peaceful ambassador offering gifts beyond human imagination. They saw only the danger of what they couldn't control, not the opportunities being offered. That night, Maya began seriously planning Zephyr's escape. She had been studying the facilities systems for weeks, mapping security protocols and staff rotations. Her background in computer systems gave her insights into the electronic locks and surveillance networks that kept Zephyr imprisoned. The biggest challenge wasn't the technology. Maya was confident she could hack the security systems. The real problem was the physical reality of Zephyr's situation. The dragon was held by massive chains anchored deep into the cavern's bedrock. Even if Maya could unlock them, Zephyr was too large to fit through the facility's corridors and elevators. The solution came to Maya during another communication session when Zephyr demonstrated something remarkable. The dragon possessed abilities that went far beyond physical strength. Through focused concentration, Zephyr could manipulate electromagnetic fields and even affect the molecular structure of certain materials. Maya watched in amazement as Zephyr caused its chains to vibrate at specific frequencies, gradually weakening the metal's crystalline structure. The dragon had been slowly working on its bonds for months, but the process was incredibly slow while under constant surveillance and regular sedation. You could break free if you had enough uninterrupted time and energy, Maya realized during one of their conversations. Zephyr's eye blinked in confirmation, accompanied by harmonics that conveyed both hope and concern. The dragon was worried about the consequences of escape. It didn't want to harm any humans in the process, even the ones who had imprisoned it. Maya felt a surge of admiration for the alien's moral code. Despite everything Zephyr had endured, it still cared about the welfare of its captors. This was the kind of thinking that humanity desperately needed to learn. Over the next few days, Maya refined her escape plan. She would need to create a significant distraction that would draw security away from Zephyr's chamber long enough for the dragon to break its chains. Then she would guide it through the facility's emergency evacuation routes to an exit point that could accommodate its size. The facility had been built partially within natural cave systems, and Maya had discovered that one of the original mining tunnels led directly to the surface several miles away. If she could get Zephyr to that tunnel, the dragon could escape without endangering any human lives. But first, she needed to give Zephyr back its strength. Maya had noticed that the dragon was kept in a deliberately weakened state through a combination of sedatives and electromagnetic field generators that disrupted its natural abilities. The fields were controlled from a central computer system that Maya had already identified as vulnerable to infiltration. During her next official session with Zephyr, Maya positioned herself near one of the monitoring stations and used a small device she had assembled from medical equipment to access the facility's network. Her fingers flew across the modified tablet as she navigated through layers of security. "What are you doing, Miss Chen?" Dr. Harrison's voice made Maya's heart skip a beat. She looked up to see the researcher approaching with a suspicious expression. Maya quickly closed her tablet and smiled innocently. "Just taking notes on Zephyr's language patterns," she said. "I think I've identified some grammatical structures that could help us understand their technology." Dr. Harrison's suspicion didn't fade, but he couldn't argue with Maya's results. Her breakthrough in communicating with the dragon had made her indispensable to the research project. That evening, Maya put her plan into motion. Using her network access, she began uploading a virus into the facility's computer systems, not to cause permanent damage, but to create controlled failures that would require emergency maintenance. She scheduled the disruptions for the early morning hours when staff would be at minimum levels. At 3 a.m., Maya received the message she had been waiting for. Multiple system failures were being reported throughout the facility, requiring immediate attention from both technical and security personnel. She quickly made her way to Zephyr's chamber, using her administrative access to bypass several security checkpoints. Zephyr was waiting for her, more alert and energetic than Maya had ever seen it. The electromagnetic suppressors had failed along with the other systems, and the dragon's natural abilities were returning. "Are you ready?" Maya whispered. The dragon's response was a low harmonic that vibrated through Maya's bones, conveying determination and gratitude in equal measure. Zephyr began concentrating on its chains, causing them to resonate at frequencies that made the entire cavern hum. Maya watched in fascination as the massive links began to glow with heat and stress. Hairline cracks appeared in the metal, spreading rapidly as Zephyr's power focused on the molecular weak points. The first chain snapped with a sound like thunder, causing emergency alarms to begin wailing throughout the facility. Maya's heart raced as she heard running footsteps echoing through the corridors above. "Hurry," she urged Zephyr. "They'll be here soon." The dragon's second chain broke moments later, freeing its massive wings. Zephyr stretched them for the first time in months, and Maya gasped at their full magnificence. The wingspan was even greater than she had imagined, easily spanning the width of the cavern. As the remaining chains fell away, Zephyr rose to its full height for the first time since its capture. The dragon was a magnificent sight, scales gleaming like precious metals, eyes blazing with intelligence and power. Maya felt both pride and terror at what she had helped unleash. But when Zephyr looked down at her, Maya saw only gentleness and gratitude in those ancient eyes. The dragon carefully lowered its great head and touched Maya's forehead with its snout in a gesture of profound respect. Heavy footsteps thundered down the corridor, accompanied by shouts and the distinctive whine of charging weapons. Security forces were closing in rapidly. Zephyr moved toward the tunnel entrance Maya had identified, but paused and looked back at her. The dragon's harmonics conveyed a complex message that took Maya a moment to understand. Zephyr wanted her to come along. Maya stared at Zephyr in shock. The dragon's invitation was clear, but the implications were staggering. Leaving with Zephyr would mean abandoning everything she had ever known, her family, her world, her entire human existence. But as security forces burst into the cavern with weapons raised, Maya realized she didn't have time for hesitation. Shouts of "Don't move!" and "Stand down!" echoed through the chamber as heavily armed soldiers spread out to surround them. Dr. Harrison appeared behind the security team, his face a mask of fury and betrayal. "Maya, what have you done? Do you have any idea what you've unleashed?" "I freed an innocent being who was being tortured," Maya replied, her voice surprisingly steady despite her racing heart. "Zephyr came here in peace, and we responded with violence and imprisonment." "That thing destroyed military aircraft," Dr. Harrison shouted. "It's a threat to global security." "It was defending itself after being attacked," Maya shot back. "And it's not a thing. Zephyr is a person, more advanced and peaceful than any human in this room." Zephyr had remained motionless during this exchange, its massive form radiating controlled power. Maya could sense the dragon's reluctance to use violence, even in self-defense. This restraint only reinforced her conviction that she was doing the right thing. "Miss Chen, step away from the creature immediately," the security commander ordered. "You're in extreme danger." Maya looked up at Zephyr, who was watching her with an expression of patient understanding. The dragon's harmonics conveyed a simple message. The choice was hers, but it would respect whatever decision she made. In that moment, Maya thought about her life up to this point. 3 years of being confined to a hospital room and wheelchair. Years of well-meaning people treating her as fragile and limited. Years of feeling like she was waiting for her real life to begin. Now she was being offered the chance to be part of something extraordinary, to help bridge the gap between two civilizations, to explore wonders beyond human imagination, to matter in a way she had never imagined possible. "I'm not in danger," Maya said firmly. "I'm exactly where I need to be." Before anyone could react, Maya reached out and grasped one of Zephyr's massive claws. The dragon's scales were warm to the touch, humming with energy that seemed to flow through Maya's entire body. Zephyr's response was immediate. With careful precision, the dragon scooped Maya up in one massive foreclaw, cradling her and her wheelchair as gently as a parent holding a newborn child. Maya felt a moment of vertigo as she was lifted 40 feet off the ground, but Zephyr's grip was so secure and gentle that she felt completely safe. "Fire!" the security commander shouted. Energy weapons discharged with brilliant flashes, but Zephyr was already in motion. The dragon's other foreclaw swept outward, creating an electromagnetic field that deflected the energy blasts harmlessly into the cavern walls. Chunks of rock rained down as Zephyr moved toward the tunnel entrance with surprising speed and grace. Maya heard Dr. Harrison screaming orders behind them, but his voice quickly faded as Zephyr entered the ancient mining tunnel. The space was just large enough to accommodate the dragon's massive frame, though Zephyr had to fold its wings tightly against its body. As they moved through the tunnel, Maya felt a strange, tingling sensation throughout her body. Zephyr's scales were glowing softly, emanating some kind of energy that seemed to be affecting her on a cellular level. The sensation wasn't unpleasant. Quite the opposite. It was like being warmed by sunlight after years in darkness. "What's happening to me?" Maya asked. Zephyr's harmonics conveyed complex concepts that Maya was still learning to interpret, but the general meaning was clear. The dragon's biology was naturally healing, and proximity to Zephyr was triggering dormant regenerative processes in Maya's human physiology. As they traveled through the tunnel network, Maya felt strength returning to parts of her body that had been numb for years. Sensation was returning to her legs, and she could feel her damaged nervous system slowly rebuilding itself under the influence of Zephyr's natural bioelectric field. They emerged from the tunnel system at dawn, finding themselves on a remote hillside dozens of miles from the research facility. Maya gasped at her first breath of truly fresh air in years, feeling more alive than she had since her accident. Zephyr gently placed Maya on the ground, but to her amazement, her legs held her weight for the first time in 3 years. She was still weak, but the healing process had begun in earnest. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she took her first tentative steps. "You're fixing me," she whispered in wonder. Zephyr's harmonics conveyed gentle amusement, and something Maya interpreted as affection. The dragon explained that healing was one of the basic abilities of its people. They couldn't understand why humans had developed such destructive medical practices when cooperation with natural biological processes was so much more effective. But they couldn't remain in one place for long. Maya knew that military satellites would soon be tracking their position, and a creature as large as Zephyr would be difficult to hide from aerial surveillance. "Where do we go now?" Maya asked. Zephyr's response filled Maya with excitement and terror in equal measure. The dragon intended to reach its crashed ship and attempt to repair the communication device that could contact its people. But the ship was in the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean, nearly impossible for humans to reach. That wouldn't be a problem for Zephyr, who was naturally adapted for both air and underwater travel. But it would mean Maya would have to trust the dragon with her life in ways she had never imagined. As if reading her thoughts, Zephyr lowered its great head and touched Maya's forehead again. Images flashed through her mind, visions of Zephyr's homeworld, where beings like the dragon lived in harmony with their environment and each other. She saw cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape, technology that enhanced rather than dominated nature, and people who had evolved beyond the petty conflicts that plagued human civilization. More importantly, she saw how Zephyr's people viewed their mission to Earth. They genuinely wanted to help humanity, not conquer or exploit it. They had seen the potential for greatness in human civilization, but they also recognized the destructive patterns that could lead to extinction if left unchecked. The communication device on Zephyr's ship wouldn't just contact the dragon's people. It would begin a process of gradual, peaceful contact that could transform both civilizations. Humanity would gain access to technologies and philosophies that could solve their greatest challenges, while Zephyr's people would gain new perspectives from human creativity and resilience. But first, they had to survive long enough to reach the ship. The distant sound of helicopter rotors interrupted Maya's thoughts. Military search teams were already in the area, spreading out to locate them. Zephyr's head rose alertly, scanning the horizon with senses far superior to human perception. "We need to move," Maya said urgently. Zephyr nodded and carefully lifted Maya again, this time positioning her securely between its shoulder blades where she could hold onto the natural ridges of the dragon's spine. Maya's heart pounded as she realized what was about to happen. With a powerful leap that sent tremors through the ground, Zephyr launched itself into the air. Maya gasped as the world fell away beneath them, her stomach lurching with the sudden acceleration. But as Zephyr's massive wings caught the air and they began to soar, fear transformed into pure exhilaration. Flying with Zephyr was unlike anything Maya had ever imagined. The dragon moved through the air with the grace of a dancer, riding thermal currents and wind patterns with instinctive mastery. Maya felt as though she were part of some magnificent natural force, completely free from the limitations that had defined her life for so long. Below them, the landscape spread out like a living map. Maya could see the research facility in the distance, swarming with military vehicles and aircraft. But at their current altitude and speed, they were already beyond the reach of conventional pursuit. Zephyr's flight path took them toward the coast, where they would begin the most dangerous part of their journey. The dragon would have to dive to incredible depths while somehow keeping Maya alive in an environment no human had ever survived. But Zephyr had already demonstrated that its people's technology and abilities were far beyond human understanding. As they flew toward the ocean, Maya felt a profound sense of trust in her alien companion. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew they would face them together. The helicopters fell behind as Zephyr's speed increased, the dragon's powerful wings carrying them toward a destiny that would change both their lives forever. Maya held tight to Zephyr's spine and prepared herself for the adventure of several lifetimes. Behind them, Dr. Harrison stood on the facility's observation deck. watching through powerful binoculars as the dragon and the girl disappeared into the distance. His expression was a mixture of professional concern and something that might have been respect. "Should we continue pursuit?" the security commander asked. Dr. Harrison was quiet for a long moment, considering. Finally, he lowered the binoculars and shook his head. "No," he said softly. "I think Miss Chen might be right. Maybe it's time we learned to listen instead of capture." The decision would prove to be one of the most important in human history. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly below them as Zephyr flew toward the coordinates where its ship had crashed 6 months earlier. Maya marveled at the dragon's perfect navigation abilities, somehow maintaining precise direction despite having no visible instruments or reference points. As they traveled, Zephyr continued sharing knowledge through their growing mental connection. Maya learned that draconian senses were far more sophisticated than human perception. Zephyr could detect electromagnetic signatures, gravitational variations, and even quantum fluctuations that provided detailed information about their environment. The healing process was also accelerating. Maya could now move her legs with increasing strength and coordination. The damaged nerves in her spine were regenerating under the influence of Zephyr's bioelectric field, rebuilding connections that doctors had declared permanently severed. But more than physical healing was taking place. Maya found that her mental abilities were also being enhanced. She could perceive mathematical patterns and energy relationships that had been invisible to her before. Her understanding of language, both human and draconian, was expanding at an incredible rate. "Is this permanent?" Maya asked, gesturing to her healing legs. Zephyr's harmonics conveyed a complex answer. The healing was real and would continue, but Maya's enhanced abilities were partly due to their close proximity. Separation from Zephyr would cause some regression, though she would still be far healthier than before their meeting. This revelation added urgency to their mission. If they could successfully contact Zephyr's people and arrange for proper first contact, Maya might be able to receive more advanced healing that could be permanent. But if they failed, she would lose much of what she had gained. As the sun reached its zenith, they arrived at the crash site. From their aerial vantage point, Maya could see nothing but empty ocean stretching to the horizon. But Zephyr's enhanced senses clearly detected something far below the surface. The dragon began to descend in a wide spiral, gradually losing altitude as they approached the water. Maya's nervousness grew as she realized the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. "How will I survive underwater?" she asked. Zephyr's response was accompanied by physical changes that amazed Maya. The dragon's scales began to secrete a clear, viscous substance that spread across Maya's skin wherever they made contact. The substance formed a thin, flexible membrane that covered her completely while still allowing her to move freely. As they touched down on the ocean surface, Maya was astonished to discover that the membrane allowed her to breathe normally despite being in direct contact with seawater. The draconian biotechnology was creating a perfect life support system around her body. Zephyr dove beneath the surface with Maya securely positioned on its back. The membrane not only provided air, but also protected her from crushing water pressure as they descended into the ocean's depths. Maya watched in wonder as bioluminescent creatures drifted past them like living stars in the underwater darkness. At 3,000 feet below the surface, Zephyr's ship came into view. Maya gasped at her first sight of genuine alien technology. The vessel was unlike anything in human engineering. Organic curves that seemed to flow like frozen music, surfaces that gleamed with their own internal light, and dimensional proportions that somehow appeared larger inside than outside. The ship was badly damaged, with massive sections torn away by the impact and subsequent pressure. But enough remained intact that Maya could see the incredible sophistication of its construction. Every element seemed to serve multiple purposes simultaneously, combining function with an artistic beauty that took her breath away. Zephyr approached a section of the ship that remained relatively intact. The dragon's claws interfaced with what appeared to be a biological lock system, causing panels to iris open like flower petals. They entered through an airlock that immediately filled with breathable atmosphere as Zephyr's presence activated dormant systems. Inside the ship, Maya found herself in an environment that challenged her understanding of physics. Despite being underwater and partially destroyed, the interior was warm, dry, and filled with soft, natural lighting. Gravity seemed to work normally, allowing Maya to walk on her increasingly strong legs. Zephyr guided her through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves to accommodate their passage. The ship's surviving technology was responding to the dragon's presence, bringing systems online that had been dormant since the crash. They reached what Maya realized must be the ship's communication center. The chamber was filled with crystalline structures that hummed with energy, connected by flowing conduits that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. At the center stood a pillar of what appeared to be living crystal, its faceted surface reflecting images that seemed to come from other worlds. "This is it," Maya whispered, somehow knowing they had reached their destination. Zephyr approached the central pillar and placed its forklaw on the surface. Immediately, the entire chamber came alive with light and sound. The crystalline structures began resonating with complex harmonics, and Maya felt the energy building towards some kind of climax. But something was wrong. Warning lights began flashing throughout the chamber, and the harmonics became discordant and unstable. Zephyr's expression showed growing concern as the dragon tried to stabilize the failing systems. Maya studied the energy patterns with her enhanced perception and quickly identified the problem. The communication device required a specific type of neural interface that Zephyr could provide, but the damaged power systems couldn't generate enough energy to establish contact across interstellar distances. "It needs more power," Maya realized. "The crash damaged too many critical systems." Zephyr's harmonics conveyed frustrated agreement. The dragon had hoped that 6 months would have been enough time for the ship's self-repair systems to restore minimal functionality, but the damage was too extensive. Maya felt despair beginning to settle over her until she noticed something that sparked a new idea. The biomembrane that protected her underwater was still active, creating a connection between her nervous system and Zephyr's bioelectric field. She was essentially functioning as an extension of the dragon's neural network. "What if I help?" Maya suggested. "I can serve as a backup power source and neural amplifier." Zephyr's immediate response was negative, accompanied by harmonics that conveyed deep concern. The process would be extremely dangerous for Maya, potentially fatal if her human physiology couldn't handle the energy levels involved. But Maya had made up her mind. This was why she had come with Zephyr, not just to escape her old life, but to be part of something greater than herself. The chance to establish peaceful contact between two civilizations was worth any personal risk. "I can do this," Maya said firmly. "We can do this together." After a moment of internal struggle, Zephyr nodded acceptance. The dragon guided Maya to a position where she could place her hands on the communication device while maintaining physical contact with Zephyr's scales. The biomembrane spread across her arms, creating a direct neural link between all three components of the system. As Maya made contact with the alien technology, she felt energy flowing through her body unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was like becoming part of a vast electrical storm, but instead of destructive chaos, the energy carried patterns of incredible complexity and beauty. Through the communication device, Maya's consciousness expanded beyond anything she had thought possible. She could sense the vast distances between stars, the complex networks of quantum entanglement that connected all matter in the universe, and the distinctive signatures of advanced civilizations scattered across the galaxy. But most importantly, she could sense the Draconian fleet, still traveling toward Earth's solar system but still months away from arrival. Their ships were magnificent beyond description, cities in space that housed millions of beings dedicated to peaceful exploration and assistance to developing worlds. Maya and Zephyr worked together to compose a message that would convey the urgency of their situation. They explained Earth's hostile response to first contact, the imprisonment and torture that Zephyr had endured, and the desperate need for immediate diplomatic intervention before the situation deteriorated further. The energy requirements for transmitting across such vast distances pushed Maya to her physical limits. She felt her consciousness stretching thin as power flowed through her nervous system at levels no human had ever survived. But Zephyr's stabilizing influence kept her grounded and focused. The transmission burst forth from the ship's communication array with enough force to create visible ripples in the surrounding water. Maya collapsed from exhaustion as the energy flow suddenly ceased, but she was smiling with triumph. "Did it work?" she whispered weakly. Zephyr's harmonics conveyed joy and relief. The message had been successfully transmitted, and acknowledgement signals were already returning from the fleet. The Draconian ships were adjusting course for immediate travel to Earth, using emergency faster-than-light systems that would cut their travel time from months to days. But the effort had cost Maya dearly. The energy surge had pushed her healing process to its limits and beyond, causing some of her human biological systems to begin failing. Zephyr's distress was palpable as the dragon realized the price Maya had paid for their success. Maya could feel her strength fatting, but she also felt a profound sense of peace. They had succeeded in their mission. In just a few days, the Draconian fleet would arrive at Earth, but this time humanity would be warned and prepared for peaceful contact. Zephyr gathered Maya carefully in its foreclaw and began the journey back to the surface. The dragon's bioelectric field worked desperately to stabilize Maya's failing systems, pouring healing energy into her body as they ascended through the dark waters. As they broke through to the surface and took flight once again, Maya watched the sunset painting the sky in brilliant colors. She had never felt more alive, even as she felt her life force beginning to ebb. "Will your people be able to help me?" she asked. Zephyr's harmonics carried both hope and uncertainty. Draconian medical technology was far more advanced than human science, but Maya had pushed her physiology beyond safe limits. Whether she could be saved would depend on how quickly the fleet could arrive and how much of her human biology remained stable until then. As they flew toward shore, both Maya and Zephyr knew that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. First contact between two civilizations was always unpredictable, and Earth's aggressive response to Zephyr's initial arrival suggested that many humans would react with fear rather than wonder. But they had taken the first crucial step. The message had been sent, and the Draconian fleet was coming. Whatever happened next, the future of both species would be decided in the coming days. 3 days after their successful transmission, Maya and Zephyr had taken refuge in a remote mountain cave system far from populated areas. Maya's condition had stabilized, but remained precarious. Zephyr's constant healing efforts were keeping her alive, but both of them knew she needed more advanced medical intervention than the dragon could provide alone. Maya spent her time using a salvaged laptop to monitor global communications networks, tracking the world's response to increasingly strange reports from astronomers and space agencies. Something massive was approaching Earth's solar system at impossible speeds, defying all known laws of physics. Government agencies worldwide were in chaos. The official story blamed the unusual readings on solar flare activity, but Maya could see through the classified communications she was accessing that world leaders were terrified. They had no idea what was coming, but they were preparing for war. "They're going to make the same mistake they made with you," Maya told Zephyr as she reviewed military mobilization reports. "They're seeing your people as invaders instead of ambassadors." Zephyr's harmonics conveyed deep sadness mixed with resignation. The dragon had hoped that Maya's unique perspective would help facilitate peaceful contact, but her deteriorating health was limiting their options for intervention. That evening, Maya made a decision that would change everything. Using her network access and hacking skills, she began uploading a message to every major news network, social media platform, and government communication system on Earth simultaneously. The message was simple but powerful, a complete recording of her conversations with Zephyr, translated into dozens of languages, along with visual evidence of the dragon's intelligence and peaceful nature. Maya included her own story, how a paralyzed girl had found hope and healing through contact with an alien being that humans had captured and tortured. But most importantly, she revealed the truth about what was coming. The approaching fleet wasn't an invasion force, it was a rescue mission and diplomatic embassy combined. Earth had days to decide whether first contact would be peaceful or catastrophic. The release created an immediate global sensation. Within hours, Maya's story was trending on every social platform and dominating news cycles worldwide. The video evidence of Zephyr's intelligence and gentleness was impossible to dismiss, and Maya's obvious sincerity resonated with millions of viewers. Public opinion began shifting dramatically. Protests erupted in major cities demanding that governments pursue peaceful contact instead of military confrontation. Scientists and academics who had long advocated for SETI programs spoke out in support of diplomacy over warfare. But the response wasn't universally positive. Military leaders and conservative politicians denounced Maya as a traitor to her own species, claiming she had been brainwashed or coerced by alien influence. Some religious groups declared the approaching aliens to be demons or harbingers of apocalypse. As global tensions escalated, Maya received an unexpected communication. Dr. Harrison had tracked their location and was requesting a private meeting. Despite Zephyr's concerns about potential military traps, Maya agreed to see her former captor. Dr. Harrison arrived alone, as promised, flying a small civilian helicopter to their mountain refuge. When he emerged from the aircraft, Maya was surprised to see that he looked older and more tired than when she had last seen him just days earlier. "You've caused quite a stir," Dr. Harrison said as he approached their cave entrance. "Someone had to tell the truth," Maya replied. She was sitting cross-legged near Zephyr's massive head, the dragon's proximity still providing the life support she needed to survive. Dr. Harrison studied Zephyr carefully, noting the dragon's calm, intelligent demeanor. "I've been reviewing all our interactions with the creature, with Zephyr. You were right about everything. We responded to first contact with fear and aggression when we should have sought understanding." Maya felt a spark of hope. "Does that mean you'll help us convince the world leaders to approach this peacefully?" "I've been trying," Dr. Harrison admitted. "But there are too many people in positions of power who see any unknown as a threat to be eliminated. The military is preparing to engage the approaching fleet with everything we have." Zephyr's harmonics conveyed deep concern. The dragon explained that draconian ships were designed for exploration and diplomacy, not warfare. While they possessed defensive capabilities, they weren't prepared for a full military assault from a primitive but aggressive species. "If Earth attacks the fleet, your people will be forced to defend themselves," Maya realized, "and any hope of peaceful contact will be lost." Dr. Harrison nodded grimly. "The only thing that might change their minds is direct testimony from someone the world leaders trust, someone who can speak with authority about Zephyr's true nature and intentions." Maya understood what he was suggesting, but she also knew her physical limitations. "I can barely stand for more than a few minutes without Zephyr's support. I certainly can't travel to some government meeting." "What if we brought the meeting to you?" Dr. Harrison suggested. "I have contacts who could arrange for a direct communication link with the United Nations Security Council and other world leaders. You could address them from here, with Zephyr present to demonstrate the reality of peaceful alien contact." It was a long shot, but Maya knew it might be their only chance to prevent a catastrophic first war between species. She looked at Zephyr, whose ancient eyes reflected both hope and concern for her welfare. "How much time do we have?" Maya asked. Dr. Harrison checked his watch. "The fleet will reach Earth's orbital space in 18 hours. The military response will launch in 12 hours to intercept them before they get close to the planet. So we have maybe 10 hours to convince the world's leaders that they're making a terrible mistake." Maya felt the weight of two civilizations' futures resting on her shoulders. She was just one girl who had been in the wrong place at the right time, but somehow she had become the only bridge between worlds that viewed each other with fear and suspicion. Over the next few hours, Dr. Harrison worked frantically to arrange the unprecedented global communication link. Using his credentials and the growing international attention on Maya's story, he managed to convince leaders from every major nation to participate in an emergency session. As the appointed time arrived, Maya positioned herself so that both she and Zephyr would be clearly visible on the communication link. Despite her physical weakness, she drew strength from the dragon's presence and the knowledge that everything they had worked for depended on this moment. The virtual meeting included presidents, prime ministers, military commanders, and scientific advisors from around the world. Many faces showed skepticism or outright hostility, but Maya also saw curiosity and hope in some expressions. Maya began by telling her story simply and honestly. How she had discovered Zephyr imprisoned and tortured, how she had learned to communicate with the dragon, and how their friendship had revealed the peaceful nature of his mission to Earth. She showed them the healing that Zephyr had accomplished and explained the gifts that the approaching fleet could offer to humanity. But most importantly, she made it personal. Maya spoke about her own transformation from a bitter, hopeless girl to someone who had found purpose and meaning through contact with a vastly different form of intelligence. She challenged the world leaders to see beyond their fears and embrace the incredible opportunity that was approaching. Zephyr contributed by demonstrating its intelligence and gentleness throughout the session. The dragon's responses to questions and its obvious concern for Maya's welfare were impossible to dismiss as mere animal behavior. As the session continued, Maya could see minds beginning to change. The evidence was overwhelming, and her sincerity was undeniable. But she could also see that fear and military thinking still dominated many of the participants. The breakthrough came when Zephyr shared a final gift with the assembled world leaders. Using the communication link and its natural empathic abilities, the dragon projected images directly into the minds of everyone in the session, visions of the draconian homeworld and the peaceful civilization that awaited potential partnership with humanity. The assembled leaders saw cities that existed in perfect harmony with nature, technology that enhanced rather than exploited natural systems, and beings who had transcended the conflicts and divisions that plagued human civilization. It was a glimpse of what humanity could become with the right guidance and cooperation. When the visions faded, the session was silent for a long moment. Finally, the Secretary General of the United Nations spoke. "Miss Chen, Zephyr, thank you for this extraordinary presentation. I believe I speak for many of us when I say that you have given us much to consider. We will need to discuss this with our respective governments and military commands." Maya felt her heart sink. Despite everything they had shown and shared, it seemed like the default response was still going to be caution and delay, exactly what they couldn't afford with the fleet arriving in just hours. But then something unexpected happened. One by one, individual leaders began speaking up in favor of peaceful contact. The Prime Minister of Norway announced that his country would welcome the alien fleet with diplomatic protocols. The President of Costa Rica declared that her nation's airspace would be open for peaceful landing. Scientists and academics from around the world pledged their support for first contact procedures. Within minutes, a coalition of over 30 nations had committed to peaceful engagement with the approaching fleet. While some military powers remained uncommitted, it was enough to provide the draconian ships with safe landing zones and diplomatic recognition. As the session ended, Maya collapsed from exhaustion. The effort of sustaining the communication link while maintaining contact with Zephyr had drained her remaining strength. But she was smiling as consciousness faded, knowing that they had succeeded against impossible odds. When Maya woke 12 hours later, Zephyr's harmonics were filled with joy and relief. High above them, the first draconian ships were entering Earth's atmosphere, their graceful forms visible as points of light moving across the dawn sky. Ground-based missiles had been fired from several military installations, but the peaceful nations had intercepted most of them. The few that reached the alien ships were harmlessly deflected by defensive fields that caused no damage to either the weapons or their targets. As Maya watched from their mountain cave, the first alien vessel landed in a field outside Geneva, Switzerland. Beings that resembled Zephyr in their magnificence and grace emerged to meet human diplomats who approached with wonder rather than weapons. "We did it," Maya whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. Zephyr's harmonics conveyed deep affection and gratitude. The dragon explained that Maya's courage had saved both species from a conflict that could have lasted generations. More importantly, she had opened the door to a future where humans and draconians could work together to address the challenges facing both civilizations. Advanced medical teams from the landed ships were already en route to their location. Maya's unique role as humanity's first interspecies ambassador would be preserved and honored, but first, they would heal the damage she had suffered in service to peace. As the rescue ships approached their mountain refuge, Maya felt a profound sense of completion. She had started this journey as a paralyzed girl trapped in a hospital room, feeling useless and forgotten. She was ending it as the bridge between worlds, having played a crucial role in the most important moment in human history. The future would bring challenges and wonders in equal measure, as two very different civilizations learned to understand and work with each other. But thanks to one girl's courage and compassion, that future would be built on cooperation rather than conquest, understanding rather than fear. Maya smiled as she prepared to greet the beings who would heal her body and help her continue serving as Earth's ambassador to the stars. Her real adventure was just beginning.